Oh, yo, yo, what's up, Hivers? Happy Tune Tuesday, everybody. It's Monday night. Getting this ready for Tuesday. I really miss playing the intros to at least the first song. But I host these on YouTube since ThreeSpeak really just. I've tried to use it again. Like I'll make an attempt every couple months, and ThreeSpeak just does not work well at all. If I'm incorrect and I'm doing something wrong, please let me know because I'd love to support something decentralized. Excuse me. But yeah, it just doesn't seem to work very well. So I generally post these on YouTube unlisted and only share the link on Hive. I probably only get like 5-6 people that really dig into the content. Usually 2 or 3 that comment. But I have fun. I have fun doing it. But I'm thinking I might experiment. And put this one public, and just see if anyone on YouTube swings by. So if you're on YouTube, check out the link below and check out Hive. It's a decentralized. Anyway, check it out. But Tune Tuesday, everybody. I want to kind of continue the 2000s, the alt 2K era. And I'm picking tunes from 2005. So it's kind of interesting. You know, when you think 90s alternative rock, I mean, a lot of stuff can fit into that. You know, Beastie Boys, Smashing Pumpkins, Nine Inch Nails. I personally don't think of a lot of very poppy alternative music. I mean, I guess you could say Third Eye Blind and Matchbox 20, maybe. Like, not really, though. I feel like they're kind of something else. The Spin Doctors, but this wave of music in the 2000s, like, you know, it started out with the Strokes, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, you know, it was kind of a, you know, just kind of this vibe of like the 70s, you know, and the garage bands kind of came back, this revival of this older sound, and you had bands like the White Stripes. Very quickly, alternative rock went from like, you know, the Smashing Pumpkins, Nine Inch Nails, Beastie Boys, to like a couple years later, the Strokes, the White Stripes, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and just bands like that. You know what I mean? In a very, very quick pace of time, you know, The Offspring, Green Day, you know, there were bands that still had some hits in like, 2000. And then all of a sudden, like, it just seems like this whole new scene came up. And then very quickly after that, there was just these British bands and these very poppy, catchy bands that a lot of them got influence from the 60s, the 70s, and it just seemed like a whole new thing. And a lot of them from the 80s, like from the new wave scene, bands like The Killers, also bands like the Bravery, which brings us to our first pick. Very similar kind of vibe to The Killers. They were actually on the same label. Somebody told me, I actually knew somebody that interned at Island Def Jam, and she said they purposely were trying to get a feud going. And at the time, Jay-Z was associated, and they had a lot of hip-hop people. I don't know if that's true, but apparently, like, there was, like, this feud, and they were trying to hype it up for publicity, and I don't know if it's true or not. But definitely a similar vibe, and the Killers are a great band. But I decided to go with the Bravery, the song An Honest Mistake. This song was all over MTV. It definitely was a hit. You know, clearly synthesizers and definitely like an 80s new wave kind of vibe. And this was alternative rock, you know. The 90s, you know, you had Seattle in the early 90s. You had bands like Green Day, The Offspring, and all kinds of stuff. Beck, Radiohead, you know, in the mid-90s, and a lot of those bands continue to have hits in the late 90s. It really seemed like things just really move fast, where you had these Brooklyn bands, the Strokes, and this throwback vintage vibe. And then all of a sudden, like, there's just so much stuff going on. It just might be my own self-awareness, you know, being being old enough to, check this stuff out for myself, being in my late teens and early 20s. But it just seems so fast that the alternative scene just went in a million different directions. But I think this is a great song, The Bravery and Honest Mistake, from their 2005 album, The Bravery. And then next up, I'm going the band Bloc Party. They're a British band. I'm going the song Banquet from their album Silent Alarm. Just a catchy tune. Just a really catchy tune. Again, very poppy. I don't even know how I would describe what influenced them. I just think it's a really catchy song. It definitely got a lot of play on the MTVs, VH1s. By this time, there was satellite radio and Alt Nation was an alternative station that played a lot of this stuff. Excuse me. And I don't know how I would try to label them. Just a catchy, pop rock band. But definitely, this was kind of what the alternative stations were playing a lot of. And then third up, I'm going Pete, Bjorn, and John. That's the name of the artist, the band. The song Young Folks, the album Writer's Block. Again, all of these picks are from 2005. And this is just, again, just something very different. Super catchy. I would almost say the influence has got to be you almost think of late 60s, California, just chilling kind of vibe. This definitely isn't hard rock. It's definitely very catchy. But I think it's a great song. There's just something about it, were they listening to the Beatles? I don't know. Alternative rock took a lot of twists and turns, and, I guess all these things always exist, and, they just become more findable, more mainstream at certain times. But to me, this indie rock alternative scene of the 2000s, just so much happened so fast. It's pretty interesting. But I think this is one of the best songs, one of the catchiest songs of the last, 25 years. And then next up, I'm going the band The Arcade Fire. The album came out in late 2004, but for all intent and purpose, it was 2005, when it got some play. Again, Arcade Fire was this indie band with 9 or 10 members, and they just became this huge, underground sensation. And these bands kind of took over the alternative scene. I picked the song Neighborhood 3, Power Out, from the album Funeral. 2 albums later, they would actually win Grammy for Best Album of the Year in 2010 for their Suburbs album. And again, just a very different band. If they came along in 1999, it feels like it would have seemed so different. But maybe that's just a time bias. I don't know. And then I'm throwing you a second bonus jam. Again, all from 2005. This is from the band Hot Hot Heat, the song Middle of Nowhere, the album Elevator. These guys had a hit with the song Bandages in late 2002. I actually like the song a lot. They were on Sub Pop Records, same label that Nirvana started out on, Soundgarden started out on. Just a small label, and their song Bandages blew up. It was all over MTV in 2002. But I figured I'd give you the 2005, follow-up, stick to the same year. And again, purposely picking something that's, pretty radio-friendly, catchy, I like a lot of, industrial and weird music that's not super radio-friendly. But I kind of wanted to keep the same vibe and just kind of, present some catchy tunes that, are just kind of different, It's interesting that, these songs were definitely getting alternative rock radio play in 2005. It seems so different from, just a couple years before, Obviously, the Strokes were still around. The White Stripes were still around. They were, the biggest bands at the time. The Yeah Yeah Yeahs. What's that other band? What the heck am I trying to think of? No. Oh, I can't even think of it. Oh my gosh, my brain's not working. I'm trying to think of this band. They kind of sounded kind of gothy. They kind of sounded like the band She Wants Revenge. Oh man, I can't think of it. But anyway, I hope you enjoy these three tunes plus a couple bonus tracks. Just kind of a spotlight on what was going on in the alternative scene in 2005. And just how different things kind of happened. You know, there was just so much music at that time. And then by 2009, there was a whole new wave of stuff. But it seems like this alt 2K kind of early 2000s change actually is kind of still around, you know, to have these like really catchy poppy songs, you know, one band's influenced by 80s new wave, like the Bravery, you know, the next one is just totally different. It almost sounds like maybe they're more influenced by like 60s music. And they're all kind of just thriving at the same time. They're all in their 20s and just making cool tunes, you know? But I hope you enjoyed. I love you guys. Let me know your favorite song out of the 5. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace.